You may have seen in the previous video we introduced the very latest GIGABYTE BRIX Pro, which is a highly evolved mini PC which uses the very latest Intel Tiger Lake platform. Tiger Lake is the successor to Intel's Ice Lake platform, and it's one which introduces better graphics, higher memory, and a revised CPU architecture known as Willow Cove. So what we have inside here is a Intel Core i7-1165G7. Now, just to unpack that for you, that means it's the 11th generation, 65 represents the highest SKU in the series, and G7 represents the highest level of graphics. It's a 4-core, 8-thread CPU with each core having a base clock of 1.2 GHz. However, a single core can boost as high as 4.7 GHz, which is quite remarkable. Now, to achieve that, what GIGABYTE has found that the CPU will fluctuate in terms of power draw quite considerably. Now, to make sure that the CPU gets enough juice, GIGABYTE is actually packaging the GIGABYTE BRIX Pro with a 135 watt adapter. That makes sure that the CPU is never going to have any trouble and there'll be no throttling of clocks and the maximum performance can be achieved. So for our benchmark comparison, we're going to compare the BRIX Pro, its Tiger Lake platform, with an Intel NUC running the previous 10th generation, which is the Comet Lake platform. It's important to note that the CPU here has 6 cores and 12 threads, and system memory running at 266 MHz, whereas, of course, if you recall, on the BRIX Pro, we're talking about 4 cores and 8 threads with memory frequency of 3200 MHz. Let's look at the benchmarks. Let's start with one of the most commonly used GPU benchmarks, Cinebench R20. Here you can see that the 11th generation Tiger Lake platform pushes ahead with an improved performance score of 5%. This might not seem like a huge difference, but when you consider that the Comet Lake platform has 2 extra cores and 4 extra threads, it's remarkable that the new platform wins at all. Geekbench is another popular CPU test, offering both single-core and multi-core performance metrics. In the single-core race, the Core i7-1165G7 pulls ahead by more than 13%. Significant gains for the new platform. However, when utilizing the performance of all 6 cores and 12 threads, the Core i7-10710U claims a 10% advantage. PC Mark 10 is all about system memory, CPU, and GPU. The new platform takes a substantial lead of more of 27%, which is made even more impressive when you consider the difference in physical cores. Focusing on graphics performance, let's start with 3D Mark Time Spy, a really grueling test usually reserved for desktop PCs using a discrete GPU. Straight away, we can see that the new and improved Iris Xe iGPU has much more punching power, claiming a win by an incredible 64%. 3D Mark Skydiver is designed to test mobile platforms. And once again, we see the BRIX has a massive advantage, pulling ahead by a solid 60%. Further proof that Intel's latest platform packs considerable GPU punch. Now it's time to consider if Tiger Lake's PCIe Gen 4 support really offers advantages in terms of data bandwidth. First off, it's interesting to note that despite being pretty close, the PCIe Gen 3 based NUC produces a 4.55% performance lead in the sequential write test. In the 4K read and write testing, however, we see some very meaningful gains for the newer PCIe Gen 4 capable system, with a 28% lead in the write test and an incredible 66% gain in the read test. So while we're on the topic of performance, you can clearly see that with Tiger Lake we're getting a very significant boost over the previous generation. But it's also important to note that with Tiger Lake we're also getting Thunderbolt 4.0, which gives us a data bandwidth of up to 32 gigabits per second, which is pretty incredible. And what this means is that with the mini PC, this generation of mini PC, we're now able to connect something like this. This is a GIGABYTE gaming box. You can put in here a high-end graphics card and you can enjoy the highest gaming experience ever, which means that for mini PCs now have evolved to a space where there are literally no limitations. So let's just unpack everything you're getting with the new BRIX Pro. First of all, you're getting Intel's latest Tiger Lake platform, which has given us the fastest mobile CPU architecture yet. Couple that with the fastest DDR at 3200 MHz. You've also got Gen 4 PCIe, which is going to give you the fastest storage that you can have. Then you've got Iris Xe graphics, which not only gives you 3 times better graphics performance, but also access to 4 HDMI ports, powering displays at 4K at 60 Hz. Now you can add to that Thunderbolt 4.0, which is going to give you not only great connectivity for your storage devices, but also access to the high-end GPUs that we have right here. So altogether, what you have is the perfect solution for a high-end consumer's business or commercial segments. This will be available in November, and please don't forget to check out other videos on the GIGABYTE channel.